Hello. So this video is going to be kind of a sloppy video. Just a warning, don't listen to it if you don't want to, obviously. But it's about it's kind of like ongoing situation in my life, so it's like a baby mama situation. So I'll start out by saying it's like how I feel about the whole thing. So I feel embarrassed, scared of my family, scared of being shamed or condemned by my family, scared of my mother and how sick she makes me feel about any of my personal or relationship or loving issues. She's always made me feel that way, actually, about all that stuff. Or issues related to being a man, because my dad wasn't there when I was growing up. Yeah, so I get the feeling is like the strongest feeling of disgust that you could imagine. That's how I feel with regard to my mom, and like her feelings getting mixed up with mine, type of thing. There's a word for that. It's called parentification, but and then they also call that like emotional incest. It's just disgusting to me, but it's like when the parent or the mom isn't really able to like it's like when the emotions get confused, like between the kid and the mom. And so it's like something that can happen, and it's really disgusting to me. Like, that's how the feeling is. But that's why I don't tell her anything, and I kind of learned that early on, that it's just it's more that it's her opportunity than it is me trying to share anything. It's like her opportunity to work through her stuff, so it's complete disgust for me. Sorry for carrying on about that, but I have to make that clear. But then also I'm scared of my other members of my family, like my aunt and uncle, being judged by them or condemned, or the worst one is actually pitied. And also, if your family puts you through what's called like a struggle session. I don't know if anyone's heard this term. It's like one of my favorite new terms, actually. I heard this one a few months ago, but I guess it happened in, I don't know, was it like Vietnam, like during the Vietnam War or something? Or maybe it was like communist China. I can't remember, but they would put people through what they would call like a struggle session, where if someone had like concerns or something they wanted to bring up that was legitimate, but they were under a regime where it was antithetical to the regime, but they were kind of like just like a concerned person that wasn't like fully in opposition, they would put them through a struggle session where it would be like one person and then a bunch of other people, and they would like basically just, it would be like they would be just like, the conversation would just be like forcing them through manipulation to like kind of, see it their way of the regime. But I just love the term struggle session. So anyways, I don't want to go through a struggle session, and like that's something that happens a lot in just modern day too, and has happened a lot in the modern day, where it's like if anybody is like not interested in LGBT, not interested in women's issues or something like that, and it's not just that they're not interested, it's like that's being imposed on the workplace, or that's being imposed on the society in some way, and you're like, actually I don't really agree with that, and if you try and take a stand, then it's like all eyes go on you. It's like the Eye of Sauron hits you. It's like that burning eye in the Lord of the Rings. It's like staring at you, and it's like then you have to sit through like the browbeating and everything, the guilting and all of that. So anyways, but yeah, I don't want to have to deal with my families or my aunt and uncles with their emotions, particularly thinking about my aunt. I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but just that it's like if anything gets raised with boomers sometimes, especially with boomers, if you get in the way of like, this is a little bit off topic, but their guilt, like if you get in the way of if you try and get between them and their guilt, especially like white guilt or whatever, and like say like, well, you don't actually really need to feel guilty about all of this stuff that they tell you need to feel guilty about, like the Holocaust, colonization, slavery, all these things. You know, your ancestors weren't pieces of shit. It's like boomers can't handle it. They like freak out just to maintain what they know, that they're supposed to feel horrible. And I think deep down they actually don't want to feel that way, but it's kind of a weird thing that's going on there. But I was a little bit off topic, but I don't like feeling with or dealing with other people's emotions and justifications when I'm raising an issue that's like, you know, kind of like an issue in my life, right? And then it's like if you raise an issue in your life with a lot of people, especially women, I'm not trying to be really mean here, but it's like they take that information, they take that energy, and they freaking run with it, and they just go nuts with that information because it's like an opportunity, you know? They watch all this, they read all these books, like trauma books, other kind of books. They watch all these videos. They listen to, you know, all this stuff from their friends or whatever, and they sit there and they're like this, and they're like, they're listening, but they're waiting for their turn to talk, especially women. I'm not trying to be really mean here, but that's why I avoid that, and I think a lot of men avoid that too, although some men play into it. But, yeah, I mean, I just don't like that. I'm kind of over it, you know, that stuff, so I just don't want to have a situation that's like a genuine situation, and if I raise that, then it's like fucking dog pile, you know what I mean? Excuse my language. That's the thing I don't like. And then so listening to other people's justifications and them talking too much and giving bad advice, and then them guilting you and feeling ashamed, right? Because it's like they're trying to give, quote, good advice, but it's bad advice, and you don't want to have to tell them, like, yes, I know, yes, I know, yes, I did that, yes, I tried that, yes, I researched that, yes, I know about this, yes, I know about that. And it's like, oh my goodness, I don't want to have to sit through all of that. So anyways, I feel also scared and angry at, you know, more members of my family, like my brother, and my own siblings. I have two other sisters. And the thing I don't like is when they give you like a knowing look. And it's like they don't really know, but they give you that look. And it's like a look of judgment. And it's kind of like a smile and a smirk too. At least in my family, they'll do that. And I've learned now it's just that they can't handle anything serious. So that used to really piss me off. But a lot of people are like this, that they legitimately they cannot handle a serious conversation, so they start laughing, especially in Canada for some reason. Canadians think anything that like is a serious thing, they think it's funny. A lot of times, not all of them, you know, but it's kind of weird, honestly. But I think a lot of that's got to do with just like the too much TV and not enough like real life. And not like any good advice either, and you know, nobody reads anything that's important. So anyway, yeah, I don't like that smile and that smirk. If I've done something wrong, you know, it just feels like judgmental and whatever. But yeah, and when that happens, I feel like a hatred. Like I feel like a hatred, like I could murder somebody. Not that I would, but that's like the feeling I get, like just like an anger and a hatred. So anyways, I hate when it's my issue, but it feels like other people take it as their opportunity, or that they take it as as their opportunity. And also I hate the dysfunction within my own family. I hate how the family functions off of dysfunction. It's kind of a weird thing, but I'll explain. It's like the fake deals, like the promises that, oh, we're going to do something later, or I'll do this with you another time, or, oh, I have friends, we do that all the time. And this was when I was growing up, right? And it was like all these like fake promises or big talk, like talking a big game or whatever, just trying to make it seem like, oh, the future is going to be so great, the future is going to be so great, the future is going to be so great. And you're always like, really? 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 As a kid, you know? And it's like, that's the purpose. That's literally the purpose, is that, you know, people say that kind of stuff, like talk a big game, because they want to get your hopes up in that moment, you know? And maybe they don't genuinely think that they're going to let you down or whatever, but they just don't give a fuck, excuse my language, about following through. You know what I mean? So that happened to me so many times. But anyway, yeah, I don't like the dependency as well, where there was like a dependence on people needing stuff. And not like in a good way. It was like a dependence, that we would get to hang out and do stuff as a family when things were going wrong. You know what I mean? It wasn't just like, you know, you could get together and go for a picnic because everybody wants to share time together and values each other and loves each other. That would be healthy. It wasn't like that, okay? It wasn't like that. It was like somebody's having a freak out, everybody gets like a burst of excitement and their heart rate goes up, and then they get to, you know, relax and like go back to their corner, you know, and veg out on TV and whatever and video games until the next freak out or whatever. And it was just it was like that all the time. And the manipulation too, which I really don't like. One example I'll give is this is a really bad one actually that happened to me the other day, and it's like now I'm older, I can catch this stuff, I can actually identify it and realize what it is. But I'll just give the clear example. I went over to visit my mom like a few months ago. I don't remember exactly when, and we I ordered food, and we were gonna have something to eat, and she didn't really want to eat, and but she wanted me to eat, and I was like, you know, just sitting there or kind of standing there, and I wasn't eating yet, and we were talking, and then she sat down and she says, okay, say your prayers. And then she said a prayer and like thanked God for the food, and then got up, and she's like, okay, now you can eat. I was like, what the that is messed up. That's like beyond messed up. And I catch this stuff all the time, but it's for her, she literally doesn't even seem to understand or whatever. There's a term for that. I think it's called like narcissism, or like covert narcissism, or it's some kind of term like that, where there's just zero insight and constant like defense and survival. That's what it is. That's what narcissism really is, if anyone wants to kind of know about that. I think there's like maybe a question around the theory of if it's like there's a, if it's it might be possible that it's something to do with like a brain, like you could be born like that, but I think most people agree that it's a protection thing. So from nurture, it's like it's not nature, it's nurture. But anyway, I told her like, that's really, you don't do that. Like, you don't try and use God to force people to do or manipulate people to do what you want to do. Like, that's messed up. But that's what she's been doing like my whole life. So I'm not trying to be really mean or anything, or like dishonor her really, but at some point it's like you have to be descriptive. Like, you have to be able to describe like what's going on and what's gone on and everything. And it gets really confusing too, to be honest. But yeah, so, and also there's like kind of like a high that you get after these big fights, or like during, and it's not like a you feel good high. It's kind of like you feel good, but it's like a mixture. It's mixed up and it's messed up, and uh yeah, I don't know. It's just like when there's a lot of activity, it's like everybody comes together kind of, and um yeah, so it's just an inappropriate thing. It's like you're not coming together um to focus your energy on something good, you're coming together because it's like you're in a pattern and a cycle of like terrible stuff. And then when you try and look at why there's a pattern and pattern and a cycle like that, you realize it's like a huge can of worms, and it's just a lot of people that don't want to deal with their own shame and guilt and trauma and mental illness and all that stuff. And yeah, it's that's literally it. Like, and spiritual issues, people don't want to deal with all that stuff, so they just continue and continue. And I'm not trying to really harp on this, but I feel like it has to be said. Yeah, and then another thing is like, the family comes together when things are going wrong. It's like they set up stuff so that it can go wrong because they don't plan it correctly, and you wonder like, why didn't you just plan this right? Why don't you just do things right? But it's like they have their way of doing things, and they have all like their justifications for why they do things like completely crooked. But it's like those are like post hoc or ad hoc justifications, you know, as needed or after the fact justifications, like why they do stuff screwed up all the time. I'm not trying to be mean by saying this, but legitimately that's what it's like, you know. And then all the time spent together is spent on correcting the thing that went wrong, you know. And I kind of realize this stuff. It's like making plans to do something simple. It's like people will say in my family, like, oh yeah, it's over there, and we'll go do that later, and we'll, all right, let's, I just got to do this first, and I'll call you. And then it's like, okay, well, what are the details, you know, and is this person going to show, are you going to show up on time, and then it's like they don't call you, and then you have to call them like an hour later, and then they have like a reason, oh, I got tied up with something, and then you, like, okay, and then you're like waiting, and it's like, then they show up, and it's like they're late, and then you have to go do something else first, and it's like, so the whole idea was just to spend some like quality time together and do something nice, and it's just like that doesn't matter. That's just like a feature, you know. In their mind, it's just like something that's not that important, like. And then there's all this guilting later if you get mad about it. And then they try and guilt you like, oh, I was trying, and like, you know, I got tied up and I told you that. And so it just is exhausting, you know what I mean? But the other thing is that, well, what's the other option? Well, if you cut your family off or cut them out, well, then you feel very lonely, right? And it's really tough, like, because there's also the attachment angle as well, which is just a thing. It's just a feature that everybody has, not a bad thing, but it is that, you know, people desire spending time with each other, you know. I'm just saying that if the time spent together with your family is like, it sucks all the time, and it's just like you're constantly getting burned, yeah, it's really tough to continue. So it puts you in a rock and a hard place, you know. So anyways, yeah, and I don't like when it's a pattern. And when I was younger, I didn't really realize it was a pattern, right? And not a lot of people would. But as I got older, I started to get frustrated because I caught on that it was a pattern. And when I was trying to I'd try to correct it, right? But then it'd be like, that didn't really make a difference. And the pattern would just adjust itself to continue to be screwed up despite my efforts. I'm talking about in my family. And eventually I got to where I am now, where I realized that it's actually, it's a spiritual illness, it's a mental illness, it's a trauma, or it's, their own guilt and shame and sins, or that they're reliving those things in their past that maybe happened to them or that they did or something, but it's not processed and not dealt with, and so they're like, it's like they're reliving it, and it's a huge mess, and there's also external factors in the world like, um, you know, inflation and all of this other stuff that's going on. That's real stuff, you know. But all these other factors that are happening too, and that really are like destroying society, like the cell phones and everything. But yeah, what a mess. So, anyways, and then the another thing is that I feel embarrassed slash ashamed before God, because that's actually should be the first thing, um, because you can actually rebuke, and nobody tells you this. Nobody will tell you this, but this is the truth. In the Bible, it tells you you actually should rebuke your brother if he sins against you or sins, because then you won't share in his guilt. You know? So I think the same would go for your family as well. But, yeah. And the point is, like, not to, I think, condemn your family, but to tell them, you know, you really need to um, uh, do what's right before God as well. And so it's not so much of like a you and me thing. It's just like I'm trying to be good with God, and I want you to be good with God, and then, you know, we can both be good with God and be together in that way, because that's a good way. So anyway, but I do feel embarrassed and ashamed before God about this whole situation, which I haven't even gotten into, but it's the baby mama situation. So I sent a message to this girl on Instagram as an apology, but I don't really expect a good response. I don't even know if she'll respond at all. But I apologize, and that's all I can do. So what the situation is, 10 years ago, I dated a girl off of Tinder for 3 weeks, and we were hooking up, and this was before I was really Christian, so I didn't care, you know. I just was horny. I just wanted to date and have sex with these women off of Tinder. I'm not trying to be gross, but I'm just trying to be like descriptive, you know. But and I mean, that's kind of like that's also like kind of like the culture too. Is this kind of like hookup culture, and that's been going on for quite a while. But so I'm pretty sure she lied about being on birth control, and I would have written this down at the time. I'd have to go back and check my diary entries, but I'm pretty sure she said that. And she had said that she'd get an abortion if she got pregnant, but it's my own fault actually, because I took the risk, and I had, you know, I didn't wear a condom. So, you know, it's real life. That's real life. Just by the way, these are real things. This is the real world. And yeah, and so she got pregnant, and my parents, they did not really like help me for this stuff. Like, I didn't even tell them, but it's like they did not set me up for like what to do on any kind of serious matters, you know, like so I felt like I had no help for this, although I didn't even really ask for help. But and I'm not trying to be like, you know, disparaging really on purpose to my family. I'm just trying to be descriptive, but it was like a disaster, you know, me, how I grew up, and you didn't get equipped, like you didn't get taught any of like the good stuff. Although my mom did try to like take me to church when I was younger, but my family fought against it so much, like my siblings, and she just gave up eventually on trying to take us all to church. And but she did really try when I was younger, so, you know, that's good that she did that. I didn't really appreciate it at the time. And also she would like misrepresent the Bible message too. Like, she didn't explain that it was like a loving message, and more so than explain like demonstrate. But anyway, that is like, I think, the most important thing. That is like showing that it's like a loving message, right? That we have a loving God. So anyways, yeah, so the girl got pregnant, and then I felt like my life was over, and I was working a job, and I was like thinking like, oh, I'm gonna be here forever. And I just remember lying on my bed and like just like having a complete freak out, and like it was like my brain was a train hitting a wall over and over and over again or something like that. Like it just felt like I couldn't figure out what to do or how to go forward or anything. But the thing is, I didn't tell anyone because I was like so ashamed and I was so embarrassed, and I couldn't even consider that. Like it wasn't even something I could consider. And so what I did was I did like a lot of people do, is I looked online for advice. And the advice they gave online was that there was like some article, they gave advice like you have different options in this situation. And the last option was that you could just be a real jerk, and, you know, be a dickhead and tell her to get an abortion, and then that's it, and just leave it there. And so I took that option. And, you know, this was before I was a Christian, like I said. And, well, I was, like, before I was, like practicing, and I took it seriously, you know? And so I just remember there was, like, these intense phone calls that we had. I don't know if it was one or more, but, and she was, like, I don't know. I can't really remember. It was, like, very confusing, but she was saying, like, well, could I put it up for adoption? And it wasn't just, like, a calm conversation either. It was, like, she was, like, freaking out. And then I didn't hear from her for like 9 months. But after 9 months, I just got a text that said, hey, and it was from a number I didn't recognize. And at that point, like, I didn't know, because I kind of just put it out of my head. I put it out of my head like, okay, she probably got an abortion. She said she probably thought, like, yeah, I said I'd get one. Okay, now I will. And at the time, also, I didn't really, like, think about these things very deeply. I kind of thought of it from, like, a selfish perspective. And so, yeah. Like, I was, like, pro-abortion at the time. I wasn't pro-life. Because to me, I didn't really understand it. Yeah, but, like, the church perspective, and I take this perspective now, is that life begins at the moment of conception. So that's the church perspective. And now I take that perspective. But let's see here. So yeah, she sent me this text, or I don't know if it was her. I thought it was from her. That's why I didn't respond. But it was just from, like, a random number. And then years later, I see her on Tinder again. I'm still on there. She's still on there. And this was like 5 years later or 6 or something like that. And I jokingly asked, it was weird because I, like, matched her again, and I jokingly asked her if she had our child, and she said yes. And I was, like, again, kind of, like, could not tell what was real and what wasn't, like, seriously, because I don't know. And then we were texting, and we were arguing and fighting over text, because she was, like, making it seem like she did have our child, and then she was making it seem like she didn't. So she was, like, going both ways. She was doing that on purpose, actually, because I'm not sure, but I think she, like, I honestly, I think she did have go through, like, have our child. And then she sent me pictures, and the picture she sent, I thought it was like the child, I thought that it resembled me. That's why I was like, okay, yeah, that really makes sense, that she would have. She actually did. But then I think she was, like, changing her mind, because I was saying, you know, I would like to see our child. Like, I'd like to be involved and be in their life. And we were, like, arguing and fighting. She was getting really mad at me. And we were talking on the phone, and she was like swearing at me on the phone. And the whole thing was, I was like trying to be like a good person, I guess. I don't know how to put that. Like, I'll touch on that more a little bit later. But I was trying to like do what's right, I guess you could say. Like, because I wanted to be involved. I thought it's important, you know, like for children to know their father, or for their parents to be involved. But but yeah, she was really mad, and then she was like purposely being confusing and lying, and she was saying like crazy stuff, like that she was like taking meth and taking all these drugs, and like that I should just leave her alone. And then she blocked and ignored me, and then I went and I phoned her work. Like, I found where she works, and I phoned there, and she was like really upset about that. And then she had her boss talk to me on the phone, like at another time. Like, I don't remember how that happened, if he called me or what, but it was like this the guy on the phone sounded very weaselly. Like, it sounded like a little weasel called me. And then her boss like threatened to phone the police on me, but he did it in a weird way. He was like talking in like euphemism and metaphor. He's like, "We will have to go next steps," and I was like, "What are you talking? Like, what is next steps?" And the thing was, I knew that if the police got involved or anything like that, like, it would be I would have a better chance of seeing our daughter, I think. Our child. I shouldn't have said daughter, but yeah, anyway. Let's try and keep it anonymous, I suppose. But yeah, it's just, the guy seemed like a very much like a white knight to me. And so I tried calling like the social workers, and I talked to them, and they were useless. Like, they were seriously useless. They were no help. I talked to some woman on the phone, and like, they don't help with anything. And the thing is too, I think that like all of these systems and stuff, it's against men. Like, men are the enemy in all of these things, like child custody and all of this stuff. And I really got that sense. But I left it there, and then years later, now I'm trying again, because I talked to somebody else about it, and they were kind of saying about, like, I don't know, they didn't tell me I should reach out or anything, but I guess I just talked to somebody about it, and yeah, and it was actually yeah, so I talked to somebody about it, and I just was thinking, like, the important thing is actually the kid, like the child, because parents are selfish, seriously, a lot of the time, most of the time, much of the time, and they're proud. Like, there's too much pride with parents, and they're like really selfish a lot of the time. And what ends up happening is that the kids get the buck passed to them, whether it be like you know, the emotional buck. I don't know how to put that better, but it's like it's not a logical thing, because parents, sometimes I think they try to think logically, but they're doing all this other stuff at the same time too. But a lot of times they're trying to they're like angry as well, like in these kind of situations, and just in general, I think a lot of the time. But well, not all the time, you know. There are some good parents out there. Whenever you see a really successful person, and they're well adjusted, and they seem calm, and they like know how to deal with things, and you know, stuff's going good, a lot of times they've had good parents. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to be mean to people by saying this stuff, but that's like the thing I noticed. So it makes a huge difference. But what I'm saying though is that, like, kids the they're like the can that gets kicked down the road, or the emotional buck or whatever. And it's sad. Like it feels horrible for the children. And I was kind of like one of those kids too. Well, I definitely was. And it just fucks them up. Like, excuse my language, but it makes them messed up, because it's unsolvable. For children, it's unsolvable problems. It's problems they should not have to solve, and they're put in the position where they are basically forced to, biologically, because they have no other choice but to love their parents and their attachment figure and try to attach to something. That's actually what happens, That's what's going on with a lot of stuff, is that people, they have to attach to something, right? Like they need that love. People need love. Like they need that stuff. This is proven. I'm not trying to be like, sappy or soppy or sound gay or sound like a faggot by saying this stuff. Excuse my language, but a lot of people actually think like that. That's how I grew up. And it's not like you just get toughened up and whatever and you adjust. It's like your brain will change. It'll mess up your brain if you do not have like that unconditional love and everything. And so anyways, I sent that message. I sent like an apology to the mom, because that's all I can do really. And I was saying the Lord's Prayer, and it's like, it always says in the Lord's Prayer, if you say it, it's forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And so, yeah, it's really hard, actually, because I'm not like very happy about the whole situation at all. But that doesn't really matter that much, because it is my fault too. So I have to just like kind of put that aside. And I apologized just over a message, and I don't know if she'll respond or whatever, but at least she's probably seen it, I guess, and I hope so. And and I can just pray for them and put forth that a good faith apology, a good faith effort, and that's all I can do. And I think about it, I'm like, well, could I go for like a custody battle, or could I do all of this stuff? And but I think that like what's pleasing to God is what's most important. So yeah, just apologize and see what happens. And I don't know. I don't think that she's gonna. I don't think she's gonna. Well, she might forgive me. I don't know. You know what I mean? But what can you do, right? And this is like the real ugly, gross, and whatever you want to call it. But it's the real life stuff, and nobody wants to deal with it. By the way, of course not. But it's real life, so what can you do but deal with it? You can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. That's something that I think Coach Corey Wayne always used to say. I don't know where he probably got that from somewhere. But yeah, he was like a dating coach guy. And yeah, so anyway, that's the whole situation. Oh yeah, I drew this. It'd be hard to really make sense of it, but I drew this. Oops. Okay, yeah. I don't know if you can really see that. But what it is in the center, that's the Holy Trinity. So that's like the center of everything, and that's like love, that's everything good, and it comes from God. God generates it, and then all these little dots, they're just like being generated out of that, and they kind of like go further out. It's kind of like a fractal or a spiral. You can think of it that way, but they go further out, and then these 2 points on the other side that have like an arrow and it's like versus this, versus that. That's like the polarization and the false dialectic, as I labeled it. So a dialectic, it's like two opposing sides, and a false dialectic is when you have like two fake opposing sides. So, everybody's pitted against each other in a false dialectic, instead of what really we should be doing is like this. It's not really a dialect. It's not really opposing sides. It kind of is. The opposing side is that we don't really go toward God. So God is always like trying to come toward us, and we really should be trying to come toward God as well, because he's always calling us back. And how do you do that? It's through love, by the way. Just letting you know, you're supposed to love God, and then he's always loving you. And he says, you did not choose me, I chose you. And so that's the force or the movement. That's the directionality. That God is actually always choosing us. It's like a force. It's like, because the reason I make that point is because a lot of people are reactionary, and they're like, well, I don't want to make the first move. Like, women are like this especially. It's a really female or feminine energy thing to be like, I don't want to make the first move, but I will respond, and I'll react. And in telling about what happened, well, this happened to me, and that's how I reacted. Okay, whatever. The point is that God is acting on all of us through love. And to go back to him, we have to accept that and love him back. And then also, so required in that is faith. And then we also have to do what's pleasing to him, which is repentance and asking for forgiveness for our sins, because those separate us. That's actually what sin is. It's whatever separates you from God or makes you unclean. So that's what sin is. And the reason why you can't be in a state of sin and get closer to God is because God is perfect and he's sinless, and he's entirely clean, and he can't be with anything that's unclean. So that's how that works. And it really is like, God really is, he's like a force or energy or life force or creation or constant emanation of goodness and everything like that. And when you don't, have faith in that or believe that, and you don't, you reject that, or when you refuse to do what's good in his eyes and listen to him and follow his instructions, what ends up happening is you just move further and further away, because all this good stuff, like we're created. We didn't create ourselves. We are created, and God is the only uncreated. And by the way, he lives forever. God is eternal. He's never going to end. This is actually hard for me to kind of get my head around. It's a lot sometimes, but he's always going to exist. He's uncreated, eternal, and all powerful. But if you don't go toward him, so eventually you just die. Like, you move further and further away, and then you will just die, and you will actually go to hell, I think. So I think that's eternal too, but it's just eternal separation. So heaven is like being reunited with God. That's what heaven is. Going away from him, that's hell. That's separation is hell. And it really does feel like that. Like it will feel just horrible. There will be no good feelings, nothing like that. But yeah. So very important stuff, I think. And then I'm gonna read another one of the Psalms, and that'll be it for this video. Alright, Psalm 2. Why do the Gentiles rage and the peoples imagine vain things? The kings of the earth and the rulers have conspired and have taken counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, Let us break their bands asunder, and let us cast away their yoke from us. He that dwells in heaven shall laugh. and the Lord shall mock at them. Then shall he speak to them in his anger, and terrify them in his wrath, and say, I have appointed my king over Zion, my holy mountain, to declare my promise. The Lord has said to me, You are my son, this day I have begotten you. This day have I begotten you. Ask of me, and I shall give you the heathen for your inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for your dominion. You shall shepherd them with a rod of iron. You shall break them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Be wise now, therefore, O kings. Be instructed, O judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with reverence, and uphold him with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and you perish from his way, while his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed are all they that put their trust in him. Amen. Alrighty then.